All right. I want to thank you guys for joining us today. My name is Scott Meeks. I'm one of the senior directors, strategic account executives here at Lightspeed Systems. And also, I've joined us today, Kevin Askew, as our VP of Sales from the Stop It solution.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So, we're going to take a few minutes, and once again, we really want this to be a really informative session. We're going to cover a couple of things here. So, Kevin, if you want to kind of go through to the next portion of the agenda and kind of really focus in on what we're going to talk about today. So, really, we're going to do an overview of the House Bill 268 and the School Safety Act. Understand what compliance looks like on this, and kind of a lot of this is probably going to be some review, but maybe some of you haven't looked that deeply into it yet. But we're going to go over what that compliance looks like, and then we're going to also articulate for you some of the things that we're doing and some of the other Georgia districts that are already kind of taking advantage of this. Kind of really, what does Lightspeed have to offer that really helps from a compliance standpoint to help you meet those goals? And then at the end, also, we're going to review what, to our understanding, the available funding opportunities are that potentially are for this. And so really kind of two parts. One, go over the bill, and then also talk a little bit about what that compliance is and how we fit into that. Go ahead, Kevin. So, understanding the House Bill 268, the School Safety Act. So, this was enacted in law in April on 28th, 2025. It was proposed last year, so we all kind of knew it was coming. The compliance deadline is not until July of 2026. So this really gives us a great opportunity for those that want to kind of look at addressing this head on going into this next school years, or also in preparation for how you might look to address this as the year progresses into to the deadline point of July. So really the legislative summary is require schools to implement a panic alert system, anonymous threat reporting, behavioral threat assessment, and a school safety plan that includes family and first responders. Now that's pretty broad, and it may include multiple aspects of how you address this. So we're going to, like I said, cover some of these things here. The requirements: provide a statewide anonymous reporting system. And so that's really one of the things that we're going to talk a lot about today. And towards the end here is the stop it portion and our compliance in that. And then establish a mobile panic alert system for your school staff. I think for a lot of districts that we've heard in the state that we've talked to, our partnering districts and many others, the Centegic seems to be the one of the solutions that's being rolled out pretty broadly. We'll talk a little bit about an offer that we have as well, and then implementing behavioral threat assessment and management process. And that could be fairly broad across a couple different spectrums of how you might address that as a district. But these are the core tenets of the requirements. And so part of that is in those requirements, what does compliance look like? So an anonymous reporting mechanism operational with clear response protocols, a panic alert system in place and accessible to all school staff. The other portions of it is a documented behavioral threat assessment process with trained team members. And I think that not only goes internally, but anything that you might partner with that has a human reviewed element that comes alongside of you, like the Stop It platform, or like we'll look at in the Alert platform, is that they are equally trained in behavioral and threat assessments when looking at those. So I think that goes not only for you as a district and what you're doing internally, but anything that you might partner with, I think is going to be important that falls in line with those protocols. So a comprehensive school safety plan developed with input from school staff, students, parents, and local agencies. I'm sure as you're connecting with your administration, what that looks like, how you might message that. And then staff trained in violence prevention, emergency procedures, and mental health awareness, and collaboration with law enforcement, public safety, and behavioral health partners. And so this may include your involvement with your SROs if you have an on-premise partnership with law enforcement, or if things do roll up locally to law enforcement, what's their involvement in that from a public safety perspective. And then parent and community engagement incorporated into safety planning and crisis communication. So these are the tenets of what compliance looks like. And so most of you have kind of looked through these. These may have a multiple pronged approach. The part that we're really going to lean into today is, what does compliance look like for the elements that Lightspeed could potentially partner with you on this? And the first element we're going to talk through is really, I think, one of the more critical ones is the anonymous reporting, and also the student mental health support aspect of that, and having people available to do so. And I think I've talked to many districts in the state. There's a myriad of a see something, say something. There's some other kind of tip line things available. There's some very clear protocols and compliances in regards to those tip lines in order for them to meet the requirements or exceed the requirements. And so really at this point, what I want to do is I want to turn it over to Kevin and kind of just walk through that first part of that, of the element of the stop it portion, which is the anonymous reporting. What does that look like? How do we exceed compliance? And so Kevin, really, I want to turn this over to you as we can kind of take a look at some of this stuff.
Great, and thank you, Scott, and welcome to everybody who's joined us today. So, just at a high level, right, based upon the different components of the mandate, including the anonymous reporting systems, the mobile panic alert, and the behavioral threat assessment process, Lightspeed Solutions exceeds, meets, or supports each of them, right? So, we're going to go into the first component first, the anonymous reporting component. Right. So I'd like to take a few minutes to talk about Lightspeed Stop It and how it exceeds those requirements under the anonymous reporting section of HB 268. So within the anonymous reporting system, we've got three main engagement components, right? From a reporter standpoint or a student standpoint, right? So you've got the anonymous reporting component, allowing students, and if you allow staff and parents to submit anonymous reports regarding school safety, mental health, or any other things that they want to share with the school community. An important note is we do provide the ability to engage with the program through multiple distribution points, right? We understand cell phone free education is taking hold in a lot of places across the country, including Georgia. So, in addition to the mobile app, we provide the ability to engage through a web interface, Chromebook app, or a direct hotline into our human review team. The human review team is the second component here. 24/7, 365 in-house team of trained safety specialists, right? So their main role in this program is to monitor every report that's coming in, right? What they're on the lookout for is anything that would be deemed life-threatening or imminent threat. Once they come across those reports, they're able to execute on an emergency escalation process that we put in place with your teams at time of onboarding, right? And that escalation response is normally a primary and secondary contact at the district level and a local law enforcement 24-hour dispatch number. So then two components from the admin side of things, right? So we've got two-way anonymous chat on the back end. So program administrators have the ability to message back and forth with those submitting reports, right? To be able to gather some more information, right? To be able to take the report through to resolution. And then also broadcasting, right? So program administrators have the ability to proactively solicit information from users of the program by utilizing this feature that allows them to ask questions out to their community or provide links and access to additional resources that they want to make available to their students through the program. It's a great way to drive school community engagement, but also gather information on things that may have happened, and you want to have the students be able to report things that they know or have seen.
And Kevin, from a compliance standpoint, right, looking at these, how they meet them, I think as we look across this and knowing that there's been an element like this in the state already and some of those things, these differentiators here I think are important to look at when we're looking at a matter of compliance to legislation, right? I think the elements of this are going to be critical. And really not only critical from the compliance standpoint, but the compliance standpoint from but also success in what we're doing with these type of solutions. So we don't want to put them in because we have to. We want them to be a successful element. And looking at some of these differentiators, why are they so important, and why is from a stop it perspective, which we're already out of the box prepared for this. That's already built to kind of work in this way. But you want to kind of go over some of these and what we kind of see some of the differentiators are, and some of the crisis lines that we've seen, or the 24/7 tip line, and just to understand what the differences are, what's out there, and why this is so important that we exceed these requirements.
Yeah, absolutely, right. And a lot of these components, right, shows the difference between a true program and just a tip line, right? So Lightspeed Stop It isn't just a tip line. It is anonymous reporting program, right? That it includes multiple different components. And some of the major features, right, that fits the compliance under the House bill is the dedicated 24/7, 365 human review team, right? Ensures round the clock monitoring and emergency escalations. We also do have a component within the program that also gives you outside of school hours report vetting, right? And that piece of the program is designed to provide actionable intelligence while reducing program administrator burden. We know your teams need downtime after hours, on weekends, on holidays, and school breaks. So from a non-emergency standpoint, our team has the ability to do that high-level vetting and then deliver a report to you the next day that shows all the reports that we vetted non-emergency on after school hours. The district first approach that we take, right? We know these programs cannot be a one size fits all. So we work with your districts right down to the building level to configure the anonymous reporting system to align with your needs and challenges.
I want to pause
Alongside,
there for, I want to pause you for just a second and having some conversations with some of our districts in the state. Some of the anonymous tip lines that have been in place, Kevin, my understanding is that is really a state level, and those tips go to the state as one big bucket. And if they
exactly. So that's
right,
That's a great point, Scott. And so we believe that the district should decide what information is important to them. In some cases, we see some state solutions where the reports will funnel through to a fusion center, right? And then those individuals in the fusion center who are receiving the reports make the decision on what's important to roll down to the district. We feel that it's the district who should make the decision on what's important to them, and we work with you to craft the program that way.
and would you say, Kevin, that when we're deployed that way and we're taking that approach, is that now we can differentiate, where this particular anonymous tip came from, what campus is associated to, versus just having this broad net that says somebody said something, and we're
Yep,
not.
absolutely. And we also have additional components within the program from an admin standpoint. Based upon the types of reports coming in, we can auto route those tips to the right people within the school district to receive them. An example is if it's a school safety report that's coming in, that can get routed to an SRO or building leadership. If it happens to be mental health related, it could go to a counselor or a team of counselors. We do also see a lot of reports coming through our program around basic needs insecurities, right? Students sharing it, parents sharing that they're experiencing struggles. Those reports could funnel through to a social worker, a team of social workers, or anybody involved with family engagement to provide access to resources that can help. Right.
And I think this is such an important element in working with so many districts around these kind of initiatives in the past, is that school districts have the unique challenge of being very large environments. Even if you're a couple thousand kids, that's a very large enterprise environment to try to manage. It's a lot of people, and so we don't always have the scope and scale of personnel in a K-12 environment, right? Whether that be the technology side or even teaching administration, right? So we're always doing more with less. And so the important element of this that we're pointing out is that you may have different folks that are in different roles that need to see certain things. And this is about the distribution of information to get it to the right place, to the right people at the right time, so you can take an action that would be impactful, versus having it just kind of going, it becomes the boy cried wolf, right? If you're the only person you're getting all of them, but they don't all pertain to you, then you're required to then forward that on and get that to somebody else. And from an administrative standpoint, that can be very challenging, and not really getting the best of these types of solutions and how they're designed. But by having this approach to be able to put it down at different levels at different campuses and having different instructions like this is really hugely beneficial. I'll say that from they're not ready to reference, but we've had a couple major districts that have already committed to this moving forward into this next year. One of which being Barrow, and the other one being Butts County. A lot of due diligence, a lot of these questions about the requirements, about the 24, about routing things to the proper place. So we know that that's a critical component for districts. when you're distributing this kind of information. To have a broad tip line that goes in everything into one big thing is just too much to really manage from that perspective, where this will give us a much more robust approach of how we distribute that technology, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So adding on to the configurability within the district first approach, right, that really allows us to configure the report types, the additional questions, and then the resources is the real-time data, right? So within our admin portal, we provide the ability to not only see metadata or incident data from an account level at the district level, but then also down to the campus level. So really giving you a great snapshot in terms of what's going on at the district level and then in each individual building. You can see trends, you can see report types, you can see access to resources, you can see how many students are accessing the crisis text line integration, right? Really allows you to make informed decisions at the building level and then also provide additional resources needed based upon that data that you're seeing within the admin portal and the reports coming in.
Yeah, that data I think is so important as people are putting these in place, right? In order for us to inspect what we expect at different levels, this really gives us kind of a lot more aggregate data to understand kind of what's happening and how it's being utilized.
Yeah, and I think as you look at all of this, right, in terms of how we exceed the requirements and how our approach really helps us to launch your program with our support, right? And we've got the flexibility to be able to do that because we not only have our own in-house crisis center, we own our technology, right? So those two main components of the program, the human side and the technology side, all sit under one roof, right? We think that's really important. We're able to be very nimble and make the changes that we need to make the program a huge success for you.
And the reason that's important, Kevin, is not to and kind of speaking to other solutions that we've seen out there might be owned by one organization but run by something else. They don't own the technology, but they own the service and all of those things. And so really what we have is complete ownership of not only the technology, as Kevin says, but the communication and how we work with the district. And so there's no concern about that support and all of that. So we're engaged with these customers, working on the solution all the time, hearing feedback. So it's an important element. I think when you're making a partnership with anybody, is that do you own your technology? Do you support your own technology? Is this all managed kind of in one place? Do your human review team do those work for you? Which that's another important element, that they are employees, right? That they aren't just a call center somewhere, right? These are highly trained people that come from backgrounds in behavioral or law enforcement, things of that nature. And then
Yeah.
so the two-way chat is another important element.
Yes, absolutely. Right. So that, as I had mentioned, allows when a student makes a report, it allows the program administrators and the right program administrators who are receiving those reports the ability to communicate back and forth with students, right? To be able to gather more information, right? Maybe, a student was vague in terms of identifying a friend who's in need, right? Really being able to get more of those details in what's a safe space, not only for the reporter, but also the program administrator communicating back and forth.
And Kevin, who has, and on the district side, who give me an example of how that might work, or that persona that might be doing that?
Yep. So we have it broken down by multiple different admin levels, right? So within the district level, we have lead admins who have the ability to receive all reports coming in at the district level. They have the ability to communicate in areas where they see a need to be able to get involved. But then also at the building level, we have org admins. So those people will receive all the reports based upon their school building. And then we also go one level deeper to report admin. So that's where we can set up the auto tip routing that allows school safety reports to go to an SRO, mental health reports to go to a counselor, and basic needs reports to go to a social worker, right? We want to make sure the right people have the right information to be able to take the immediate appropriate action.
Right. And all of this we've talked to is really pertained to the tip line aspect of it. Now, one of the other parts that is integrated with this solution, I think, is equally as critical and is really part of the mental health strategy that we see in the components. And this is really one of the elements that really helps us exceed the requirements is the crisis text line integrations. And so, that's a kind of different element, a different component, Kevin, but maybe even more important, right? For those that are looking to self-help and have some needs, maybe just a quick explanation of really what that is,
Yep.
what it entails, and how is it beneficial to a district.
Yeah, so absolutely. That is a long-time partnership with a national non-for-profit crisis text line. It allows us to provide the ability for students to connect directly with a trained crisis counselor 24/7, 365. This service is designed to take somebody from crisis to calm. If it's 2 o'clock in the morning on a Friday, 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a Saturday, a trusted adult is not around for the student to engage with, the ability through our program at any time to start a conversation with those counselors who can then provide the help that they need or escalate in areas when it's deemed an emergency.
Yeah, such an important element as far as the compliance aspect, but also in the general overview plan of supporting from a mental health perspective, having a resource that is vetted, dedicated, right, 24/7. That if we do have a student who's in need or has something going on in their life, that they have an immediate place to kind of talk and communicate, and with those trained folks. So another element that's a part of this, it's really really important. So these are, if you look through the requirements, the 24/7, the trained professionals, the really the workflow down to the district and the site-based level, down to each individual site, super important. I think from a real-time data perspective, important for you as you're looking through these solutions and looking at data, and then kind of driving maybe some of the initiatives you have moving forward. Maybe whether it be about bullying, seeing those tips, seeing those things that come in, what's that data look like? So maybe there's some efforts as a district that we might want to take from our student services perspective to have some conversations about trending things that we see happening in our environment. So lots here on the compliance side. It's made to be very easy. I mean, Kevin, anything we'd add before we move on to the next portion?
No, so I want to be respectful of time, but also, let you know we can go much deeper into any of these components if you'd like. All you have to do is schedule, some time with our team, and we'll do a deep dive with your teams to cover each individual component in a deeper way.
Yeah,
So,
to help brace them for this, for those of you who attended, it is our intention to follow up with you directly, and I will really encourage all of you, as some of this is maybe new to some of you, or some of you might be really be looking for a potential solution, is schedule some time with us, for a call, and we can go through the platform, exactly what it looks like, address individual questions and how things might work. It is definitely worth, even from an educational standpoint, as you're doing diligence for these kind of things, to get a full understanding of what this looks like and how it works, and have a place where you can ask questions and we can dive a little bit deeper. So I really encourage all of you to schedule some time with us if things that you've seen here are of importance to you, or you want to get more information, or you may have some other personas that you might want to bring into this conversation. You have been the ones who have been picked to come to the webinar and kind of find out what this is all about, and see if we can kind of go to the next place in this conversation.
yep. One thing I'll add before we go on to the next section is, during those calls, we'll provide you access to our demo instances so you can get an experience from the student level and then see the communications back and forth from our team to you during those demo sessions. So
Yeah.
being respectful of time, I know we're only at 5 minutes to go. I just want to cover a couple of additional solutions within our portfolio. Really just sharing, from a mobile panic alert system, some of the features and functionalities of our Lightspeed Notify program. It meets the requirements of the mobile panic alert component. We also have the ability through phone system integrations to provide the ability to turn classroom phones into physical panic buttons. We do currently work with GoTo Connect, Ring Central, and a host of other phone providers to be able to accomplish that for you.
And this would be an alternative to like a strategic deployment to where we don't currently have a hardware, but they can use their phones to do all the notifications alike.
Correct.
So it's a mobile base versus a badged base, fob or a panic button physically itself, but that would be done through the phone. So that portion is available as well. We're aware of kind of what's going on with the state around that, but if that hasn't been working out great for you, or if you want to look at an additional opportunity, this is something that we offer as well.
Yep. So moving on to the last solution we want to briefly touch on, right? And that's Lightspeed Alert. So Lightspeed Alert supports the behavioral threat assessment component, right? And it does so by providing program administrators actionable intelligence based on student behavior, right? And that information that you have based on that behavior can be used to begin the behavioral threat assessment process, right? So this is identifying an individual who potentially is at risk to themselves or others, and then utilizing that data to begin the process of the behavioral threat assessment.
And from a technical perspective, for those of you that maybe manage things like this would be a potential replacement for any kind of on-device monitoring solution, so a BARC or something like that nature, where you're getting data from the device itself. So Lightspeed does support it's very robust solution, our alert solution, and that's all done at the device level. So whether it be Chromebooks, Windows, Mac OS, iOS is capable as well. There is a caveat with that. But this would be, we're looking in real time on those devices in their Google environment, in their Microsoft environment. So we're scanning docs, drives, things of that nature. But we're also looking for threats that are happening online with the agent element. So if they're in a chat room or a forum or in YouTube or in something like that, we get those proactive alerts with screenshots that really tell you exactly what's going on with that student, context and what's happening with that, with a complete escalation process that can be done at each individual school level as well, that rolls up to the team. So if you have a BARC or a gaggle or something like that you're currently utilizing, this is an offering too. So sometimes consolidating services and stuff can really drive down some costs. While we are not fully integrated yet, we are working towards the next through the end of this calendar year, integrating these two solutions together into a single interface. Right now they are separate, but if you don't have a 24/7 monitoring solution like we have at Fayette and some other places, really important tool help to give you that real-time information as things are happening, with identifiable information from that student, screenshots of that nature. So if you don't have something like that, we'd love to kind of visit that as well.
Yep. So in the last couple minutes, right, I just want to talk a little bit about, funding under the Georgia School Security Grant, right? As Scott mentioned, from our research, our understanding is that the available one-time funds per school for the solutions defined under the mandate is around $21,000. You can see here on the other side of the slide, our solutions do qualify as approved expenses under that funding source. To really, understand your individual needs and budgets, we'd certainly welcome a discussion with your teams to discuss that further, right? Just from a high level, talking about our pricing models for our solutions, for Lightspeed Stop It and Lightspeed Alert is per student annual cost. Roughly think on the high end about $3 per student per year. And from the Lightspeed Notify side, that is a per school building per year, and that's roughly on the high end at about $2,500.
Yeah, from a pricing perspective, I think that's always one of the questions get asked. I think we look at each district, the things that, like in any agreements you might make, is the size of the district, the number of licenses, and the term in which we agree to. So pricing, really is kind of suited to fit, or there's kind of a starting point, but that's always one of the parts of the conversation. The important part for us is to be the right solution to help you bring these components together in a meaningful way, and then we'll work with you individually on pricing for this if you have questions, if that's a portion of the conversation that we can get into you with. So do we have any questions or anything in the chat that we wanted to address before we go?
So we again want to thank you for your time today. Thank you for what you do. And Scott, I enjoyed co-hosting with you today, and we look forward to some great conversations with some Georgia partners.